What's up, guys? You'll have to excuse the fact that you just watched a bunch of footage during the middle of the day and now it's the middle of the night. I've actually been playing in there for a few hours, but I forgot to film an intro earlier today when you guys saw all that footage. So a slight delay in reporting, but regardless, we are here to play some poker at the Bicycle, which I guess is now called the Park West Bicycle, whatever that means. Where I'm from, this place is called The Bike, and it used to have Live at the Bike, which was the original live stream. Since then, Hustler came and completely conquered because, let's face it, their stream is way better, but this is the OG spot for streamed poker, and it's the reason why I even decided to try to get on streams in the first place. Now, I play on Hustler on a regular basis, and I have this place to blame. But anyway, we are not here to play a stream. Instead, I'm going to play a private game hosted by Dr. H, who some of you guys might know. He's also a regular on Hustler Casino Live. Granted, he usually plays Tuesdays and Thursdays, which is the Annie game, so I don't see him that much. But either way, he's a good friend of mine and invited me to play a 25-50, or I think it's a 50-100, I'm not sure. Something along those lines, and he hosts this game every Saturday. Should be a good time. Let's jump in there and gamble it up. Before we do, I wanted to quickly touch on an announcement I made last vlog, and that is that I am hosting a tournament pretty much on Clubs Poker. It's $10,000 in the prize pool plus whatever layover we get, and it's only $2 to play. So if you guys want to join, it should be fun, and I'll be streaming it on my YouTube channel. You can scan this QR or hit the link down below. I'm going to be probably firing a bunch of bullets. I think it's unlimited rebuys until the end of late registration or something like that. But yeah, there's going to be a bunch of money, and it's pretty cheap to enter. So if that sounds fun to you, make sure to join and I'll see you on there. But for now, the plan is to hop in here and gamble it up. So let's go. All right, guys, here we go. Underway at the Bike, playing some 25-50, but there were often $100 and $200 straddles, as is usually the case in these private games. But anyway, we're going to start things off with a kind of wild hand, if you will. It's a bit unorthodox, but let's get right into it. I opened Jack-Nine offsuit for $200, already questionable. Middle position makes it $700. The big blind cold calls the $700, and when it gets back around to me, the clear option here is to fold, maybe sometimes put in another raise and turn this hand into a bluff, but I choose the worst of the three and just call in between two players with Jack-Nine off in a re-raised pot. You're probably wondering what's the goal here. And well, my usual objective in these private games is to, play pretty casual, loose, and give action, lose some money, but then try to get it back somehow. So we go to a flop three ways. It comes 7-7-4 rainbow. Big blind checks, and I decide to lead now on this board for 700, thinking to myself that the re-raiser on my left is often going to miss, and this is just going to put him in a tough spot. However, he calls, and now the big blind check raises to 2,500. Now, I know what you're thinking. This hand is over, right? Nope, I'm still not done with it. I decide to make the call with Jack-Nine off on this board, and of course my plan here is not necessarily to improve, but rather take it to the streets and hope that this call looks strong. Maybe the player behind me will fold, and then we can bluff the big blind who has check raised this board. Let's face it, he's going to have some bluffs from time to time. He might even have some pocket pairs or maybe a 4 that raises for protection. So I make the call. And the first part of the plan develops as the middle position re-raiser gets out of the way. So we go heads up to a turn, which is the queen of clubs. This time the big blind thinks for a while and checks. And now I decide to bet, much like I would if I had a 7 or a hand like pocket 8s or pocket 9s, which I would certainly play this way sometimes. So I throw in 3,000, no need to go too big since, I'm trying to make it look like a protection / value bet. And it gets the job done as my opponent thinks for a while and then just makes a reluctant fold. I turn it over because we're playing some sort of side game. I can't remember if it was bounty or stand-up or whatever, but it's a bit embarrassing turning this one over, 10 minutes into the session, but at least we win the pot. Next, this hand develops where I have a real one. Ace King of Hearts. I make it $200. Middle position player bumps it up to 1,000. everyone else folds, and when it gets back around to me, of course, I will be re-raising because I have a premium holding. So I make it $5,000 to go. Gets back around to him though, and he decides that's not enough. Announces all in for around $20,000, I believe. Well, we're definitely not folding ace king suited pre-flop, at least not for 20k. I make the call. We're gonna run it twice because that's what he wants to do. Usually my approach with that kind of thing, you know, running it once or twice, is to just keep it friendly and do what the other guy wants to do. Sometimes I'm in the mood to run it just once and I'll stand my ground, but today I'm not really feeling that yet. So I make the call and we run it twice. Around 40,000 and change in the middle. First board we have the nut flush draw but don't improve. Second board does give us an ace, so unlikely we're getting scooped here, and it turns out we're actually the ones doing the scooping as my opponent's got ace queen. So yeah, we get it in pretty good and are able to hold on both runouts. We're up some good money now as we go to this third hand where I straddle for $100. Early position limps in. Small blind now makes it $500, and I look down at 5-4 of spades. Could mix in a raise sometimes, but I decide to take the standard play and call. The limper on my left also makes the call, so we go three ways to a flop, which is amazing. Queen, 8, deuce, all spades. So we flop a flush. Small blind continues betting, which of course looks like good news. He puts in $400. I could raise here. In fact, I think a raise is probably the way to go, but I decide to just call and see what the player on my left wants to do, who, by the way, is Suited Superman. You guys might have heard of him. And what Suited wants to do is jam all in for $10,000. That's right, a $400 bet, a call from me, and then just, you know, your typical raise to 10,000. Early position now goes in the tank, which I think is probably good for me, right? If he calls, I assume we've got the best hand. And eventually he does make the call. He does have less than 10,000, I think like 7 or 6k. I of course call as well. If someone's got a bigger flush, they're gonna have to show me. We go three ways, all in on the flop. Both of these guys want to run it twice, so as per usual, I oblige. The first run out looks good. However, the second one brings in a fourth spade, and that means we're gonna chop because Suited Superman on my left flips over ace-7 offsuit with just the ace of spades, which is unfortunate because we get it in pretty good, but at least it's better than getting scooped, right? Running it twice does not pay off this time, but at least we do divide the small blind's money. He ends up folding whatever he had. Let's move to the next hand where I've got ace queen of diamonds. I raise it up, cutoff makes the call, and now the button makes it 1,500. Gets back around to me, and we could mix in calls or raises here. This time I decide to go for the raise. I make it $4,800 to go. Player on my left folds, but the button is not done with it. He makes the call, so we're gonna go heads up out of position to a flop of king jack 4 with 1 diamond. All things considered, not really that bad of a flop. We have a straight draw, we have an overcard, we have a backdoor flush draw, and of course we could have a bunch of strong stuff on this board after putting in the last raise pre-flop. So I decide to continue betting. I toss in 5k, around half pot. My opponent makes the call, so it looks like it won't be that easy until the turn is the beautiful 10 of clubs. I don't know if I mentioned that on the flop, but the straight draw was available and it becomes very present on this turn. It almost feels like when you bet gutters, they never get there, and it's always like a nice surprise when they do, you know? But anyway, no time to celebrate. We have to keep playing the hand. I decide to continue betting. You know, I'm not going to overcomplicate it. I've got a strong hand, and we have no removal to sets, 2 pairs, flush draws, what have you. So I size up a little bit. I make it $12,000, a little over half pot this time. My opponent's got like 37k behind, so I'm trying to set up the right size for all in on the river. But it seems that decision won't come because he announces all in himself for 37,000. That's right, we have the nuts, and my opponent jams for 37k. I, of course, make the call, and he flips over ace-10 of spades. So he's got just the flush draw, and I guess a queen would give us each a straight. But needless to say, we're getting it in super good here in a pot that's worth nearly $100,000. My opponent asked to run it twice, and like I just said earlier, I'm usually fine with it. It doesn't change anything in the long term. So we're gonna see 2 rivers. First one is clean. It's the 4 of diamonds. Second one is a disaster. It's the 7 of spades. and we end up chopping what could have been an awesome situation, but yeah, can't hold on both this time. Similar to the last hand, where running it twice kind of bites us, but at least it's better than getting scooped, just like I said last hand. Maybe sometimes he hits a spade on both boards. I don't know. No, there's really no way to feel better about this one. So let's just move on to the perfect remedy, which is pocket aces. In this one, there's a raise to 200. I make it 700. And now Dr. H, the host himself, makes it $2,600. Early position folds when it gets back around to me. Look, you can't really mess it up with aces after facing a huge raise to 2,600 US dollars. Could call here sometimes since we're not super deep. He's only got like 11k behind, but I don't want to do that and then let him check down with a hand like ace king or whatever. So I decide to just jam myself for 11,000. And after a bit of thought, he makes the call. So we're getting it all in pre-flop with pocket aces. Can't do much better than that. We have a little over 22,000 in the middle as we go to 2 runouts because that's what Dr. H wants. So another situation where we're running it twice. First one this time is a disaster as he ends up winning that one with ace queen of diamonds. However, the second one is good for me, and this time running it twice pays off, if you will. But yeah, it kind of sucks to get it in good like 3 hands in a row and chop all of them. I wouldn't complain about winning at least one of those. But anyway, let's move to the next hand where I raise to 300 bucks with ace 10. Late position makes it 1,000. It gets back around to me, and being out of position with ace 10 off, I don't know if calling a re-raise is the best idea. Probably better to just fold or maybe 4-bet once in a while, but I decide to toss in the call, which I think is a little bit lazy, but not a huge deal. Flop comes down 8-4 deuce with 2 spades. I do have the ace of spades. I check it, he bets 1,000 again, and I make the call with 2 overs, backdoor flush draw, backdoor straight. I think it's okay. Turn card is really nice. It's the 10 of clubs, giving me the old top pair, top kicker. I check it again, but my opponent doesn't slow down, and this time he bets 2,500. At this point, I've played with him a fair amount, and I know that he's capable of bluffing, so I don't really want to raise and bloat the pot versus a bluff or perhaps an overpair. I think the normal play here is to just call, so that's what I do. River card is the 5 of hearts, so we still have top pair, best possible kicker. Overall, that's going to be a great hand, but it doesn't feel too good when I check it a third time and he throws in a bet of 8,000, nearly a pot-sized bet. And now we have a difficult situation on our hands. Obviously, we lose to some hands like overpairs or perhaps the occasional ace 3, right? Some random straight. But then again, we beat a bunch of bluffs like king highs, missed flush draws, missed straight draws. Let's say he's got something like queen jack and he barreled the turn. You know, there are definitely some hands that I would expect him to try to steal the pot with. So I think about it for some time, and as is normally the case, if I think a decision is close, I'm going to lean towards putting chips in the pot. This time is no exception, and he says 2 pair. That sucks. He turns over 10-8 offsuit, and what I thought was a great turn card ended up being a disaster. So yeah, we lose this pot. Let's move on to the next hand where there's a $200 straddle on, and I open it up with king 3 suited in middle position. I make it 500 to go. Suited Superman makes it 1,500 on my direct left. And when it gets back around to me, I think king 3 suited is kind of a cool hand to occasionally go crazy with. We have some removal to ace king and pocket kings, and of course being suited is always a nice backup plan. So I decide to go for it this time. It goes without saying, but I'm going to say it anyways. You don't ever have to do stuff like this. If you just never included king 3 suited in your 4 bets, you'd be just fine. In fact, you'd probably be better off than I am. But I like to, you know, get in there and battle, give some action, especially in games like these. So I toss in 4,500 bucks. Suited thinks for a while and makes the call. So we're going out of position with the old king 3 to a flop of ace 4 with 1 diamond. Pretty dry board, relatively innocent. I'm going to have ace queen, ace 5 suited, all sorts of stuff that I think gives us the excuse to continue bluffing. So I toss in $2,600. Suited thinks for a while and makes the call, which of course isn't great, but he might still have pocket pairs. He might still have the occasional king highs or what have you. So my plan is to continue applying pressure on the turn if it's a good card. A 4, I'm probably going to shut it down. Something like an ace, I might also shut down. But the 5 of diamonds is about as good as it gets. We turn a flush draw and a straight draw. So our hand goes from being rather mediocre to having quite a bit of hope. I decide to continue betting for that reason. $10,000 this time, around 2/3 of the pot size. Now suited thinks for quite a while. Looks like he might jam all in, which would suck since he's got like 30K. But then he folds. So that's great. He said he had king queen and just didn't believe me. And it looks like he has good instincts because king queen was good. We rabbit hunt for the river, which ended up being the ace of clubs. An interesting river. I wonder what would have happened, but we'll never know as we take this one down with some well-timed aggression. At this point, I take a lunch break, have a little bit of a walk, get some fresh air, and we get right back to it with 5-3 offsuit. In this one, there's a $200 straddle on, one limp, and I decide to spring into action by making it $700. You're probably wondering, why are you raising a limper with 5-3 offsuit? And I'm wondering the same thing, but here we go. I make it 700, small blind makes the call, and now the straddler squeezes to 3,700. It gets back around to me, and I don't know why, but something about the way that he raised made me feel like he was a bit uncomfortable. The problem with that is sometimes people feel uncomfortable with ace king or even ace queen. You know, they raise these hands knowing that they're good cards, but it's still, you know, a bit nerve-wracking. So just because I have a little bit of a read doesn't mean much, but I decide to use what I think is a read anyway and make it $8,000 to go. The small blind folds and the straddler now jams for 10K. So perhaps he's not as nervous as I thought because he quickly just goes all in for his $10,000. Obviously, this hand is just a complete disaster. It's a total mess. It's a joke, right? I have 5-3 off and I'm getting it all in pre-flop, but these are the kind of things that I think are fine to do once in a while if you think the other guy has 2 overcards, and especially if you're in a game where it's in the spirit of, you know, the vibe at the table to gamble it up. So I call, we have 21,000 and change in the middle. We run it once. I'm just hoping that he's got 2 overs and my cards are live. Flop comes down 6-6-4. That looks pretty good. Turn card is a 5. We've got a pair. River is a 3. We've got 3 pair now. And of course, I'm just crossing my fingers that he flips over exactly what he shows, and it's ace king offsuit, which, you know, is music to my ears, but at the same time, we sheepishly have to turn over 5-3 offsuit, which gets a pretty funny reaction from the table. Of course, more often than not, I'm going to be losing this hand, but again, I think this is okay once in a very blue moon. In the next hand, as I'm taking notes for that previous 5-3 debacle, we pick up 9-7 of diamonds. I start filming on the flop because, like I said, I was a bit preoccupied. But all you need to know is there was a raise to 300, one caller, and I called on the button with, again, 9-7 suited. Big blind also calls. We go 4 ways to a flop of 9-5-3 with 2 diamonds. That's right, top pair and a flush draw. Late position continues for 800. I decide to just call on the button. Could raise sometimes, but this time I just call. And now the big blind check raises to $3,500. Gets back to late position, who folds, so it's just me left. And I take a look at his stack. He's got $8,200 behind. Kind of a weird spot because if I call, he's only going to have like a half pot sized bet behind. Obviously, I'm not going to fold. The question is, do we just jam all in and potentially get it in bad versus a set or maybe a bigger flush draw? But then I'm like, wait, if he has a bigger flush draw, I have a pair, so I'm ahead, right? I don't know. My brain starts to fry, so I eliminate all thought process and just say, the hell with it. I'm all in. My opponent thinks for a little, but eventually says, well, I raised to, you know, half my stack, so I'm not folding. He makes the call, and we run it just once. Turn card is the queen of clubs. River is the 4 of spades. No help to us, but it turns out we had the best hand all along until the river, as my opponent flips over 7-6 offsuit for a double gutter on the flop. Needless to say, we ran pretty bad this hand since he had very few outs considering his straight draws with a diamond were no good. But of course, I can't really complain about running bad after getting it all in pre-flop with 5-3 off and winning versus ace-king. Such is life. Let's move to the next hand where we are back to playing normal. In this one, there's a raise to 300. The small blind calls, and I make it 1500 in the big blind with queen jack of spades. A beautiful hand to re-raise with, especially facing a small blind call. The original raiser folds, but the small blind calls again. Flop comes down queen 8-5 with one spade. He checks, and almost always I would advocate for a c-bet here, but I think occasionally checking back top pair is completely fine, especially when you're either going to be way ahead or way behind. So I check it back, and we see the ace of spades on the turn. Interesting card because, you know, obviously it's not fun seeing an overcard, but we do pick up the flush draw now. My opponent leads, however. He bets $1,600. And of course, I'm not going to go anywhere. Raising here doesn't really make any sense. Folding is out of the question. So I make the call, and we go to a river, which is the 9 of hearts. No improvement to my hand, and it's not going to be fun facing a bet. But my opponent checks, and I decide to just check it back. Probably not getting called by worse, I think. So I just check back, and he says king 9 of spades. So he rivers a pair, which of course we beat with our pair of queens. A spade would have been a complete disaster. You know, I thought we were looking for a spade, but clearly not. In the next one, there's a straddle to $100, a bunch of limpers, and I look down at a premium again. Pocket queens. I'm not going to check. I raise it up to $1,200. But now the early position limper on my left, I guess he limped in from under the gun. He puts in the old limp re-raise, makes it $3,900. Everyone else folds, and now it's back on me. This is not a fun spot with pocket queens necessarily, but at the same time, queens are queens, and we do beat hands like ace king, ace queen, pocket jacks, pocket tens, blah blah blah. You guys get the idea. My hand is still strong enough to put in another raise. Calling here I think is also okay, but this time I take the more aggressive route and bump it up. I make it 11,000. Back to him now, and he thinks for a minute or two before jamming for 31,000 total. Not a very fun situation with the queens, but you know, we do still beat ace king and pocket jacks, plus maybe like 1 or 2% of the time he might be bluffing. So yeah, I make the call, but I fully expect to run into kings and aces from time to time. This time is not one of those, however. He says he's got ace king of clubs. So we're off to the races. We're going to run it just once. This time I ask for a single run out. Kind of tired of running it twice. I want blood or all the glory. So we go to a board which comes down queen 9-5 with 2 clubs. Quite the sweat here as we flop top set, but he's got the nut flush draw. Turn card is even worse. It's the 10 of spades, giving my opponent additional outs. Now any club or jack will get it done for him. Can we hold on the river with over $60,000 up for grabs? It's a club, but it's the 9 of clubs. It pairs the board, which means I have a full house and his flush is no good. I guess what you could say about this hand is, of course, it's nice to win a flip, but secondly, it would have gone down either way because, you know, if I had just called pre-flop, then of course we both make it to the river regardless. So yeah, kind of a cooler, 61,000 going our way, and of course we are up a good amount of money now. In the next one, there's a $200 double straddle on. Early position limps, and I raise it to 1,000 with pocket sevens. Player on my left, same guy from last hand, he makes it 3,000. Back around to me, and I make the call. We go to a flop of 8-4 deuce with 2 diamonds. Looks pretty solid for pocket sevens. I check it, and now he bets 1,500, which is less than a quarter of the pot. Against such a small size, I think we want to have a lot of raises, especially with hands like pocket sevens that could use some protection. But instead, I decide to just call, which I also don't think is a huge mistake or anything. Turn card is the 5 of spades. Could even lead here sometimes, but I check. My opponent checks it back, and we see a river, which isn't really my favorite, the king of diamonds. I check it again, and I'm thinking to myself, is he going to bet a king for value when I could have a flush once in a while, or, you know, 2 pair? I think the answer is yes. He would probably bet a king for value, but it turns out we won't have to cross that bridge because he checks it back. I announce pocket sevens, and I assume they're good. Sure enough, they are. I guess we were up against some sort of ace high, but we take this one down as well. And with that, we arrive at the last fun hand of this session. There's no straddle on this hand, so suddenly we're back to 2550. Middle position makes it 200. There's one caller, and I look down at king queen on the button. Facing a raise and a call, I think this is a nice one to re-raise on the button. We've got position, and it's a pretty solid hand, so I make it $1,100 to go. The big blind now cold calls this $1,100 raise. The original raiser folds, but then the late position original caller, he makes the call again. So a bit confusing, but we do have position and the betting initiative as we go to a flop three ways of ace 10 4 with two hearts. Not too shabby for king queen with a heart. We've got a straight draw and of course the backdoor flush draw. It checks to me. I continue betting small, much like I would with all my strong hands. I throw in $1,100. Big blind makes the call and late position makes the fold. Turn card is the 6 of hearts. So this is one of those nice cards that we can continue bluffing on. I could have flushes. I could still have some sets or two pairs. So when the big blind checks, I continue betting, trying to apply pressure to just top pair or whatever. I throw in $2,500. But my opponent makes the call again, so it looks like it's going to come down to the river, and I'm already thinking to myself, how much should I bet on the river as a bluff? But then plans change because it's the 3 of hearts, giving me the second nuts. Running pretty good here in the late hours of the night. My opponent checks for a third time, and now I switch from bluffing to value betting. No need to go too big here with 4 of the same suit on the board. Also would bluff for a small size, I think, since, it's pretty easy to get folds if he doesn't have a flush, or so I think. I throw in $4,200, and he doesn't seem to love it. It would kind of suck to be up against, like, king 10 with the king of hearts or whatever, but I could immediately tell from his body language that he's just not happy with the situation. Eventually, he flashes the ace of spades and folds, so he makes a good laydown. We take this one down and collect the last interesting hand of the night. As always, I hope you all enjoyed, and stay tuned for some final thoughts.
All right, so that brings an end to another session here on the channel. It's like 1 in the morning, the game just broke, and I'm pretty exhausted, but that's okay because I'm happy to report a win from today's game. You'll have to excuse this other game going on. They're pretty loud, they're having a good time. But yeah, things went well for me today. I ended up profiting somewhere in the neighborhood of $40,000, maybe a little more, which is obviously more than welcome despite being in a downswing, or maybe it should be more welcome because I'm in a downswing. But yeah, it's $45,000 back in the right direction, and this was a really fun game. So shout out to Dr. H. I had a great time, and I'll try to play here again if and when I get the chance. But yeah, friendly reminder, the tournament is actually at 8 p.m. Eastern, not 8 p.m. Pacific. I made that slight mistake on the previous video. But again, it's $10,000 up for grabs plus a bunch of layover, only $2 to enter. So it's a total steal. I'm going to be streaming it on YouTube. I'll see you guys on there. Hit the link below to join. And yeah, until next time, good luck at your local tables. Peace.